Hi everyone, in this video we're going to be looking at the remaining three movements of Eine kleine. So for the second movement, we've got the key of C major, subdominant key of our first movement, the tonic key of the whole work. Form is rondo. What's rondo form? Rondo form is a classical formal structure often used in a sonata cycle. In rondo form, there is a reoccurring A section that alternates with other sections, thereby creating contrast. Section A is heard 3 times or more in the tonic key, resulting in ABACA or ABAC-ABA form. For clarity, section A is played a bunch of times, and in between each time you hear section A, you get a contrasting section. Tempo, andante. Meter is cut. Unfortunately, my tech doesn't allow me to put in the cut time symbol, so this is what we're dealing with instead. Okay, so I gotta apologize. The score video I've linked up for you in the description has kind of a janky score, but it's better than nothing. So I hope you can make do. Here's our A section of this rondo form. It's this very beautiful, lyrical, elegant melody, really Mozart at his best. We have 4-bar phrases with super obvious cadences. There's nothing particularly harmonically subtle about this. Now where I sort of diverge from the text is that the RCM says that this melody, quote, unfolds over a tonic pedal, end quote. I'm guessing they're saying that because we're in C major and we start off with a whole bunch of C's in the cello. But I don't know if that's so much a tonic pedal as it is just tonic harmony. It's not like the pedal sustains through non-tonic harmony, so I don't think tonic pedal is the correct characterization of what's happening here. As for form, we know the whole movement is in rondo form, but there's an internal structure to this A section as well, and that's rounded binary form. So what is rounded binary? Well, it's pretty simple. We take binary form, which has an A and B part, and we round it off with the reoccurrence of the A section at the end, hence the name. However, we can't mistake this for ternary form, which is also ABA. In rounded binary, the B section will likely be highly similar in tone to the A section, whereas in ternary, that B section will probably be very, very different and heavily contrasting. Another difference is that the final A section is usually shortened by a lot compared to the original, thus why I've marked it as A1. In ternary form, we almost certainly will have a straight replica. For a definition, I'd suggest something like rounded binary is a form which begins with an A section, which is typically repeated, followed by a B section of a similar flavor, which is bookended by another A section, though this final A section is a shortened version of the original. The B and A section are often repeated as well. Next up, B section, and that's the B section within the rondo form as a whole, not just the rounded binary passage. This section has its own melody, one that has a lot of embellishment, and it's very rhythmically active. There's just a lot more movement here than we had in that hyper elegant A section. It ends with a fun little fugal passage, and little really is the word since it's over in a flash and we're back to the A section. As, you know, we are every time after one of these intermediary sections. Now, things get interesting because when we hit section C, we move from C major to C minor, so the parallel minor key. You know, what's a piece without a little intrigue? It can't all be sunshine and cucumber sandwiches, and it can't all be section A, and that's what this section is. Between the imitation happening between the top and bottom lines, violin and cello, and the restless sixteenths in the second violin and viola, we get this very anxious character. But after all this tension, we come back to our final A section and our home happy key of C major. Mozart ends with a coda, which you'll instantly know, because there's these big old chords that act like this sort of landmark for the audience saying, you know, the movement's about to end, pay attention. But despite these chords, the movement ultimately ends just as gently as it began. Third movement, we're back in G major. We're working with ternary form here, so ABA, where the A's are the same, and the B is heavily contrasted to the A's. In this case, because the movement is a minuet and trio, the A sections are minuet and the B is our trio. Our tempo is, as the minuet would indicate, 3/4. While we're at it, let's give you a solid definition for minuet and trio. A minuet and trio is a musical form typically utilized in the third movement of a sonata cycle. It is in triple meter, typically of a graceful and elegant character, and in ternary or ABA form. The minuet is a stylized dance of French origin developed in the Baroque era, while the trio is a contrasting mild section. Now, I'm sure you're all at least vaguely familiar with this idea, so I don't want to dwell on it too long, especially since we're about to look at an actual example of it. So here's our minuet, or at least the first line of it. Our internal structure of this minuet is rounded binary, so there's an A section, a tonally similar B section, followed by a shortened A1 section. The RCM says that these phrases are, quote, typically 4 measures long, unquote. They're not typically 4 measures long. They're always 4 measures long. Whoever wrote this book really has to learn how to count to 4. Anyways, I find this minuet to be quite meaty in character. Every beat in the A section feels sort of boisterous to me. It's really pushing the limits of the duration a quarter note can hold. There's some contrast in the short B section, but this doesn't feel entirely stately to me. Or, I mean, the entire minuet as a whole doesn't feel entirely stately to me. There's something of a rougher quality to it, which I do appreciate. And don't forget that this is, in fact, a dance genre. Maybe people aren't going to start dancing around while you play it. People probably didn't dance to it in practicality, but you want to have that dance-like feeling. Next, we have this totally lovely trio, which in a way to me evokes some sort of pastoral quality. We're in D major now, so the dominant key, and if you'll notice under the first violin line we have sotto voce mark, so quiet voice as if it's a whisper. This is different from that almost violently jubilant minuet we just came out of, and we have these long and lyrical lines instead. We also see a lot more chromaticism than we did in the minuet. After the trio, there's a return back to the home key of G major and the minuet, the A section. And just like that, third movement's over. Finally, fourth and final movement. Key, G major, form, sonata rondo. What is that? Also known as rondo sonata form, sonata rondo form is a form which combines elements of both sonata and rondo forms. Wow, the word form is just starting to sound weird, almost like you say purple too many times. Its typical layout is as follows. ABA, C, ABA, where ABA functions as the exposition, like in sonata form. C functions as the development. And the second ABA functions as our recap. So, fairly straightforward, I think. Tempo, allegro, meter, cut. Stay with me, we're almost there. I know these Mozart videos have chewed up a lot of time, but it's almost over. There's a couple themes we got to talk about here. The first starts off the movement, and right off the bat we have something cool called the Mannheim Rocket, or rocket theme. I marked it for you in the red box. A rocket theme is a rapidly ascending melody outlining an arpeggio. This gesture was often used as a dramatic opening motive in classical era works. And like you probably caught me saying, this is sometimes known as the Mannheim Rocket, since the Mannheim Orchestra was famed for using this particular technique. So yeah, there you have it. Quickly ascending arpeggiated chord. I think it sounds pretty cool. It starts off this really bouncy movement. That's our A section, and let's turn to our B section. B section, pretty short. We start off with this downward minor 6 in the first, and then we build back up step by step and have these little chromatic waves lapping at the beach. It's altogether pleasant, but frankly, there's not much to say about this theme. Now, please listen to the whole movement and see if you can track the ABA, C, ABA form. C is quite long since it really is the development of the A and B themes, and then the final ABA isn't going to be an exact replica of the first. Frankly, I don't think this is a great prototypical movement for sonata rondo form, but we're working with what we've got, so do your best, listen to the whole thing, really listen to the entire piece, all 4 movements if you can. Thanks for hanging in there. I'll see you next time.